No, I wish it was under different circumstances, but anytime I get to talk with Mike Bloom is a good time. So
Uh,
it's my pleasure.
Likewise. Well, let's talk about the circumstances that got you here because I need to start by getting into the practical syzygy of events, Steven, that happened at that
Hmm.
tribal council. So I want to get your reactions to a couple things that were going on. The first has to be Sophie pulls out knowledge as power. And you knew, as you said, the die is cast. You had played your block of vote previously. And I'm not sure if you knew this, but Sophie actually posted on social media this morning that Christina had told her about your block of vote before going to tribal. So talk to me a bit about what was your reaction? How surprised were you when she pulled that out?
I was definitely surprised. What was really funny is I was trying to convince people very subtly when I got back with that advantage. I didn't tell people what it was. I didn't think that people would believe that I didn't win an advantage. I mean, I'd been crushing the physical comps and I looked absolutely gassed. And so I was like, no one's going to buy this. So the best thing I can do is not tell them that I have an advantage and let them spin their wheels, let them spend all this mental energy trying to figure out what it is, and maybe that will occupy their mind and expose them in a way that will help me maneuver forward. But I was trying to convince people very subtly that I was like, yeah, I don't know. If I was Rizzo right now, I might be a little afraid on what I've got in my pocket for more reasons than just blocking stuff and stealing stuff. And I was trying to imply that I had a knowledge as power. So when I saw her pop out with it, I was like, oh, no wonder nobody bought that bluff because like they knew. But I was totally shocked, man. I had no clue that Sophie had that. That was an incredible, like, she kept that such a great secret. And I didn't even know that she had told her allies, of course, until that tribal came across. But, of course, I found out afterwards that, Christina and Sage did spill the beans on my advantage and what it was, which wasn't a huge deal because, I mean, Rizzo already had, thought maybe it was a steal a vote. So kind of in the same family of advantages. But what was really funny is I did explain the mechanic of it. I explained that once I play it on the island, it's gone and it's no longer an advantage. And I don't think that really sunk in with my allies, and so they failed to communicate to them that that was part of the game. And so I think that led to a lot of the confusion and shocked faces because everyone's like, "Wait, are we not working together on this vote? Like, are you guys?" I think there was a lot of like, wait, maybe Sage and Christina were playing us the whole time. All this different, yeah. So, dude, it was as Rizzo would say, it was absolute cinema.
Well, let's talk about another scene in that cinema. You mentioned Rizzo. So you think, okay, great. She tries to steal this advantage that I don't have. We've got the three votes. We blocked this one. We've got this play moving forward. The first possible hiccup is Rizzo stands up and debates playing his idol very verbally and decides not to. And then there's also this idea that you all seemingly were believing that the idol expired at 6 instead of 5. So give me your reaction to all of that as well. And why did you think that the idol expired when it actually didn't?
I mean, I had no reason to believe that it didn't expire at 6. And like for me personally, after Rizzo pretended to play it several tribals in a row and didn't actually play it, I was kind of like, I'm like not threatened by this anymore. I'm like, if he's gonna play it, he's gonna play it. We're just gonna make our plans around him. I was like, I didn't think it was landing with the jury the way that he thought it was. Kind of looking over at their reactions, that they were kind of rolling their eyes a little bit. So I was like, honestly, this is good for me if he's gonna get up and continue dangling it and like flexing it. I mean, it's great theatrics, but like from a strategy perspective, I was like, I don't know what you're really gaining from this. Like maybe our reactions to you playing it, but we already, after the first or second time that you do this, we kind of already know you're planning to stand up and either play it or not. And so we were just kind of, navigating our plans around the fact that I was like, if he's going to play it, he's going to play it for either himself or Savannah. I didn't see a world where he would play it for Sophie. I knew they were all working together, but that was just the vibe I was getting. I just didn't think they were that tight, and maybe that's an incorrect read, but yeah, I don't know. I was like, I guess in general, the answer to your question is, I just, I was like, okay, you're not. I was expecting him to play the idol, and so when he came up and did that, I was like, yeah, this makes sense. Like he's either gonna, he's gonna say something about his idol, but our plan still is going to work because we still have this block of vote. We should have the majority. So I wasn't too nervous until I saw the third Steven get read.
Yeah, so should being the operative term there. I mean, obviously you talk about the hurt that you're feeling in that moment. And I'm sure what's also wrestling around in your head is, as Sage says, like, I can't beat you in the end. And we get a couple of times over the past few episodes about how a lot of people felt that you were such a big threat, that obviously, as you mentioned, you were quite the physical competitor, that, you were someone who was playing the middle, that you were well liked. Were you aware of that perception? And how did that factor into sort of like your mental calculus as you're trying to pick up the pieces of your game on the way out?
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, ever since the very first merge vote where it was between me and Nate, I knew that because my name was out there as an option, I know I wasn't the first and second option because MC had her idol, so they're like, okay, we're not going to vote MC. Yellow Sophie won immunity, and so the next third person, I was like, it's me, and I was like, the fact that my name's out there is like the next third person out of all of these new people that we now have on this beautiful beach together. I kind of knew I was being perceived as a threat from that perspective, and the fact that I had survived the vote with Shannon. I mean, I was the one yellow member in a sea of red for that person, that one vote. And all the other swaps where someone from Hina was on the bottom, they were sent home. So people were like, Steven's doing something. And so I went in and I was just trying to minimize my threat level as much as possible. And so that's why I was kind of laying low. I always knew what was going on for the most part. The only times I was blindsided were Jawan and obviously mine. But like I was working really closely with Sage and Jawan, and they clued me into the fact that votes were going on Alex, and we decided that it made sense for me to vote Blue Sophie because we wanted to hide the fact that we were working so closely together, and we
Mm.
wanted we wanted the Uli members to think that Sage and Jawan were truly with them because they had flipped on Nate, but this would then be the second vote in a row where they voted together. And so they were trying to rebuild that trust. And we called it our grand master plan. We called it Operation Space Jam. And it didn't come to fruition. It blew up on the launch pad when Jawan was blindsided. The one part of that plan that didn't get factored in was that Yellow Sophie flipped, but we were setting it up for a big blindside for Savannah. That was the ultimate goal. And yeah, so I was always aware that I had a target on my back, and I was just doing whatever I could to try to minimize it, trying to deflect it. And it kind of helped that people were very willing to flip on their allies. And I think in hindsight, probably should have suspected that maybe that would happen to me. But I was like, no, not me. They love me. I'm they're telling me the truth. Like we're awesome. No.
Well, it's interesting that you're talking about, wanting to enact this Blind Side of Savannah with Operation Space Jam because theoretically, we look at last episode and, in theory, you would have had that chance that if you did want to stick with the plan that Yellow Sophie was putting out there, but you are, celebrating the fact that, everyone joined together to get rid of her. So talk to me a bit about why you did decide to join with those Ulis to get rid of her. And how do you look back on the decision now?
Yeah, totally. So for me, it was a no-brainer because like I wanted to save my block a vote to make it to the next vote. And so Yellow Sophie was someone that for the last two votes had lied to me straight to my face. She didn't tell me about the Alex vote. I only found that out through Sage and Jawan. And she didn't tell me about the Jawan vote. And not only that, but like I'm surprised this didn't make the edit because it was a masterful piece of acting on her point. But there was a moment where it was me, Christina, and Sophie were chatting, and she was crying. And she was talking about how scared she felt that she was going to be the one that went in the Alex vote. And I was like, I bought it, hook, like, and sinker. And I like hugged her and comforted her. And then she walked away, and Christina and I were like, whoa, okay. And she was like, you guys, please, you got to save me. You got to save me. And so, um, yeah, and like I knew at that point too that she had been putting my name out there, and there was a moment on the beach after the Jawan blindside where her and I were sleeping, next to each other on the beach and just chatting and trying to reconnect after, in the old Hino days. And I was asking her question after question after question, questions that I knew the answer to, and she was lying point blank to my face, and I'd call her out on it, and she'd be like, oh, "Okay, yeah, I guess so." And so all of that being said, the big reason is I wanted to hold on to that block of vote advantage. That was like point blank. I was like, this allows me to save it. If I go after Savannah, I'm more than likely going to have to play it just to ensure that we have a 3-3 tie. And yeah, and so like in that, I was like, and that's not even a guarantee because like they're also going to be putting votes on me, and we get to a 3-3 tie. Like that doesn't guarantee that I'm going to survive that. And so I was like, this was just an easy one step forward. I get to keep my advantage, and then it would be 3-3, and I would be able to have the majority by blocking a vote. And so for me, I saw a path not just to the next tribal council, but the one after into the finale. And I felt like if I could get into final five, the game was mine. And so that was ultimately what it came down to. But also, like, I just couldn't trust Yellow Sophie, at least with Savannah. I knew where her allegiance was. Like, she always did what she said. And Yellow Sophie, I just like couldn't get a good read on. So I was like, all right,
We got to talk about
good to see
Christina
her.
because
Oh, yeah.
Christina vocalizes in the last episode that the two of you have been allies since day one. She uses the idol on you. So, I want to hear a little bit more about your perception of her being a quote sloppy player that we saw from the last episode. And also, what was your reaction to her ultimately turning to vote you out in the last episode?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I do feel a little bit bad for what I said. As a person, like Christina was like one of the people I was closest with out there, and like as a human being, like I adore her and love her so much. But in the game, there were moments like not just last night or not just what was shown at the last tribal council, like leading up to it, but there were definitely moments where we'd have a plan and then, you do the speed dating, you go pair off and one-on-one talk. And then people would come to me afterwards and they would say, "Hey, Christina just said the most interesting thing." Like, and it kind of implied that maybe there's an idol in play or something. And I would kind of have to do damage control. And then there were moments where, like, honestly, I thought she was working against me when she was saying things like that. And like, you're paranoid out there. And like, it happened more and more. And like, there were moments, like, for example, where it seemed like she was closer with Alex than she was with me. Like, she was telling Alex things that she found out before she was telling me, and I was finding out from Alex. So there was a lot of moments where I was like, either she's being sloppy or she is working against me, and I'm just like totally getting bamboozled right now. And I mean, and when she played that idol, that was like a huge leap of faith. And like, I can never, ever repay her and thank her enough for that. Even though we didn't need to burn it, we didn't know at the time. Like, that was an incredible gesture of like loyalty. And I do feel bad for saying that she was a sloppy player. And like, in the moment, I just was really frustrated because she came up to me and she basically said, "Hey, like, your name was out there when Sage and I were talking as an option." And I was like, I get why it's out there when you're talking to the other side, but the fact that my two allies were considering me as a potential option, I was like, what? And then she backpedaled. So leading up to that, Sage and Christina were talking on the beach when we got back, which was weird. Usually we all three talk together, but they talked for a long time. And so that was a little suspicious. Alarm bells going off. Then she came over and talked to me. She kind of let that slip. And I like freaked out. I was like, "Christina, why are you even bringing my name up as an option?" And then after that conversation, she went back and had another one-on-one conversation with Sage. And so that's when I was like, is something going on? I went and had a conversation with Rizzo and I was like, "Dude, Christina just said the weirdest thing to me that makes me think that, like," I was like, is she flipping on me?" And he was like, "What'd she say?" And I told him and he goes, "No, no, no, Christina, sometimes she just like lets things slip and she doesn't mean it." And I was like, why is Rizzo defending my allies, intent to me? And so like, there were a lot of things going through my head that like kind of tipped off that maybe things weren't going to go the way I wanted to. But ultimately, I was like, from a logical standpoint, I was like, this is the best move that's going to ensure the three of us make it to final five and then maybe to the final three chairs. It just seemed like the best path forward for all of us. But that's what makes Survivor such an incredible game. It's like going to a museum and you look at a painting, and two different people can look at the same painting. In this case, it's a path forward in the game, but have two different interpretations on like what is the best path forward and what does this painting mean to them. And I think my blind spot was just assuming that my allies wanted to sit next to me the way I wanted to sit next to them, and that the move that I had orchestrated was the best move for their game as well. So yeah, it was. But I love Christina, and I like, we worked together from the very early days, and she always had my back, and I would have had her back moving forward too. I was definitely shocked when she flipped and wrote my name down. I wasn't as surprised by Sage. I mean, I was definitely hurt, probably more hurt by Sage because I felt like her and I were a little closer strategically talking game. Um, I thought we were on the same page, especially after Jawan left. I was like, okay, now I'm the new Juwan. Like, we had bottoms up going on, but like, they didn't show a lot of it. But I mean, her and I were talking game so often, and like all of the different moves were, we were, definitely in lockstep the whole way. So I was hurt by both of them. But at the end of the day, it's a game, and like, I'm not an emotional player, and like, I get it. Like, dude, you got to do what you got to do to get to the next round, even if it's at my expense. Like, I wish it went a different way, but hats off to them. It got them a step further, and that's all you want in a game of Survivor, is like to survive, to live, and fight another day. And yeah, so no hard feelings.
Well, last thing I want to do very quickly, you are the king of metaphors, as you just, were able to do in that past answer. Give me a space fact that you feel applies most to your game, and explain why.
Oh my gosh. Well, oh man. Let's see. I would say I kind of mentioned this in my pregame interview, but I did come in wanting to play a little bit like a supermassive black hole. And what I meant by
Right.
that is I knew I was going to come in. I knew I'm like this likable golden retriever who's smart. I work with NASA, and I'm like athletic enough to maybe win and be a physical threat. So I wanted to downplay that as much as possible. And I think that I did a pretty good job at certain points, but instead of being a supermassive black hole, I think I was more of a shining star than I gave myself credit for. And maybe I was a neutron star, which was more of like a failed black hole. And so I actually was a star that instead of going supernova, I just kind of collapsed in on myself and became super dense, but didn't become quite the black hole I wanted, didn't quite go supernova the way that maybe would have been a big splash. And like, maybe I could have done some cool, big, flashy moves like Rizzo. But honestly, I didn't think that was going to get me to the end of the game because people were already throwing my name out there from the merge. And I just knew I had to kind of minimize my threat level as much as possible. But once I had that block of vote, you kind of see my personality shining through a bit because I finally felt insulated enough and protected enough where I was like, all right, now I can be a little cocky and now I can kind of start feeling myself a bit. But leading up to it, I was trying to be super humble, being like, oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. So anyway, does that help? Did
Yeah,
that land?
absolutely. I mean, listen, regardless of, what celestial body you appropriate to yourself, you are a star at the end of the day. And so, I always enjoy getting to be in your orbit, whether it be, before the game or after the game as you're reflecting back on a lot of stuff that happened. So thank you as always, man, for opening up and for bringing your awesome personality to every conversation that we have. It truly means the world.
Yeah, it means the world to even have a chance to talk to you. This is like a dream come true. I love you and like everything you do so much. And the fact that I'm even talking to you at the end of this game is like the cherry on top and like a huge fan. And just thanks for everything you do. And thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about my game. And yeah,
Yeah.
I love it.
I
So
love you, man,
appreciate
too.
you.
Thank you so much. Again, that really means the world. I will let you get back to, start planet hopping with the rest of these interviews, but all the best to you and yours, Steven. I can't wait to talk to you in the future.
Yeah, likewise.
All
Take
right. Have a
care.
good one, man.
See ya.